All right. So, explain to you what happened and what we're going to do to correct this. We've been working on this refrigerator now. We've charged it a couple times. We were repairing and replacing some of the lines and everything. And in doing so, the capillary tube, which is right here, we restricted it when we brazed it onto the dryer filter. The dryer filter, this dryer filter here would have connected to the capillary tube right here. And every time we worked on it, now the capillary tube keeps getting smaller and smaller. We have about an inch left of capillary tube right there. So we're going to go ahead and do a evaporator and heat exchanger job. This isn't one that we do very often. And just imagine, and we discussed it when we did that test with the restriction on a capillary tube. We said, how would you know if your capillary tube's restricted or not? What could we do? We put nitrogen to it, and we added a valve with nitrogen pressure, and we went ahead and we pressure tested. We didn't have a restriction at the time. But what if you had a restriction? I said one of the things you have to do is you have to replace the capillary tube if the capillary tube's restricted. Well, the capillary tube comes with the suction line here. Those two lines are connected together. And they call this line a heat exchanger. They solder the capillary tube right to the suction line, about the whole length of the suction line. Now, the reason why they do that is because the high pressure, high temp capillary tube and the low pressure, low temp suction line, they exchange heat between each other and they help evaporate any refrigerant before it goes into the compressor. So with this, we're going to have to install a new heat exchanger. Now, it can be done adding a heat exchanger to the evaporator, but it's a lot more work. So I usually just replace the evaporator along with it. Now, this is the replacement evaporator for this unit, and they got caps on here. Let me go ahead and take this off for a second. And the caps here cover these two lines. And if you see, one line's very small. So which one is this? Cap. This is the cap tube, and this is the suction line. So this has to go through it. And if you read the instructions, it's very difficult to go ahead and add this thing on there, because what happens is this is all aluminum, and they want you to attach these two lines here. Well, if you notice, they go in the freezer like this, but these lines have to come out of the back wall. Because the original ones are inside the wall, we can't replace them, so we have to run them down the back of the refrigerator like this. Which means what? I have to bend it. And when you have this, when you have these two lines soldered together and you try to bend it, you're going to kink it. And even if you are able to bend it, when you attach it to the evaporator and you try to stick it through the wall, you could damage either this line, or because this is aluminum, you can kink these lines here. When I first started doing them and following them, there is a set of instructions that come with the kit and tell you how to do it. Really doesn't work all that well. Okay, so the one with the excess capillary tube, this goes towards the compressor. So if we look at it, we go here. Now here's the thing. You have to have the capillary tube that long, because the actual diameter and length of the capillary tube determines the pressures in the system. And if you cut too much of this capillary tube off, you're not going to have a properly flowing system. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of modifications here. They want you to solder these two directly to the box the way they are, but I don't have very good luck with them. I need, Jovan, can you go in and get me a cap tube cutter? No, I got a razor blade right here. Thank you. I'll definitely have to edit the tape a little bit. Okay, thank you. So, one thing we want to do is we want to make sure the diameter of our cap tube is good. This one's okay. I'm really not going to mess with the cap tube at all on this one. The cap tube hole opening is okay. But what I want to do is I'm going to remove about, I'd say about 6 inches of this suction line. Okay, and in order to do it, if you see, this is soldered to it. This is almost like plumbing solder. And so what we want to do is we want to apply a little bit of heat to it, and we want to go ahead and take this apart from here because I want to cut about this much off, and I'm going to show you what we're going to do with it. We're going to reuse this. So I'm going to go ahead and light the torch, and pull it apart. Go ahead and just pull it slowly. Okay, thank you. So now we've separated this from the suction line. What we want to do, it's not that hot, what we want to do is we want to cut off about 6 inches of this line. So I have a tubing cutter over here, 1 second. Doesn't have to be exactly 6 inches, but we're going to use this. Now most of these top Frigidaire units are 5/16 suction lines, okay? And it's a little warm, so I'm going to be very careful with this. And I'll cut off about that much, okay? Now before I cut it, I'm going to go ahead and add a 90-degree bend with a tubing bender on there. So I want to take this and I want to add a 90-degree bend, and I'll explain to you in a second why we're going to do that. I'm just going to go ahead and do the very end of this tubing. I stuck the tubing bender in there, and I'll hold it this way. I want to bend the very end of it, and I'll just go ahead and put a 90-degree bend on there like that. Just like that, okay? Now I'm going to go ahead and cut this tube. Now this is all in preparation for the job. I'm going to show you what we do inside the unit, how we attach this to the evaporator, and then how we're going to get it down to the compressor, and then what we do to cover it up and finish it off. Now I'm not going to go through the charging process of it today. I'm just going to talk about how to install this and how to install the evaporator. And then on Monday, we'll connect them with the dryer filter to the whole unit, and then we'll charge the unit up with Freon. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut this off. So put this aside. Now remember, I said this evaporator is going to go inside the freezer like this, okay? So I got to get the line to come out. So what do you think I did? I made myself a tube that I'm going to solder onto the evaporator, and I'm going to solder it, and I'm going to aim it towards the back of the fridge, and I can bend it a little bit up or down. It is aluminum. You got to be careful not to bend it too much, but I want to make a hole through the wall that this can pass through, and I'm going to solder this on now so I don't have to go inside the freezer where all the plastic is and light a torch and damage my freezer. Now I still have to add the capillary tube, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a few minutes. We're going to do that partially in the refrigerator, but we're going to do it in a way where we won't damage the refrigerator. So all the brazing here to the evaporator is done outside the freezer, not done all the way up inside the box. Now you can go ahead and braze inside there if you're careful, and you wrap everything up, and we do have some of these heat shields that come with the kits, but you know, if you don't put it in the right place, it don't take very long for the heat of your torch to melt the inside of the box. So if you do it this way, you don't need to do that. So before I go ahead and do this, I guess we're going to go ahead and solder this piece on right now. Now we do have to put it so that, and if you're facing this way, it's on your left, but we're going to have to put it facing the right, and then we'll shoot it out the back that way. So what we need to do now is we need to solder this piece on right here. We don't have a bench, do we?
one right there.
Right here, let's take that motor off, let's put it on the bench right here. Can you see that on the camera? Do you want to do the brace here? I need a stick of solder, please. Somebody get me a stick of 15. So you're going to apply heat here, and then you're just going to put the solder right around it, okay?
Which is the suction line?
What?
That's going to be the suction line.
This is the suction line, correct. Now I'll just edit that stuff out, like where we're just sitting here waiting. Just give me one stick. Come on, come on, come on. Hey, bought me coffee too? Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to solder this, and it's out in the open, nice and easy for us to do. So this is, if we're going to do it in the customer's home, this is how we would do this. Go ahead. Put that solder on the back side. Shoot the flame here. Right here, wait. Wait. Go ahead and touch and see if it'll melt. Do it again. A little more, a little bit more. Get out, we're done. Turn the torch off. Now, after you're done brazing, you just want to inspect your braze all around. Don't see any visible holes in there. Looks like it's sealed up pretty good, right? Mm-hmm. Very good, very good. Okay, so we're going to let this cool down while we're prepping the freezer. I need a pair of diagonal cutters. They're in the box. Can you see inside the freezer?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Make sure you see it in there pretty good.
Yeah, you good.
Alright, so we already have this freezer open for service. Yeah, I know you guys can't see, so you might want to come over this way just for a second. And we're going to go ahead and disconnect the electrical from the evaporator, here and here. And we're going to disconnect our defrost thermostat. Now we also got to reinstall these foam pads. One's missing on this side, but there's some foam that goes on either side of the evaporator. I'll show you in a minute. Now we use the diagonal cutters. With the diagonal cutters, do you want to try it?
Okay.
Hold the diagonal cutter so the flat side is towards the ceiling. And we're going to try to cut the capillary tube and the suction line. Do one at a time, as close to the wall of the refrigerator as you can. Try to go flush with the refrigerator. Go as high up as you can. There you go. Push it all the way up till it touches the ceiling, then cut it. Now cut the suction line the same way. That's going to take a little bit more of a oomph when you bite it with your hand. Squeeze it and then rock it back and forth like this with the pliers. Okay, very good, very good. So now remember, this already had no Freon in it. The dryer filter was already moved, so we're just going through the process of replacing this dryer filter. This evaporator. So the heater is held on by two clips on the bottom of the evaporator. If you had to change the heater, you would just loosen these clips and take it off. So we're going to reinstall this on the bottom of our evaporator. You want to go ahead and take this off and reinstall. I think I got new clips for that. Roll this over this way. I'm turn around so you're not facing the back of the camera. Now, a lot of these evaporators, if you look, there's a notch taken out of the bottom of this fins here. Can you see how the notch has been removed?
Yeah.
The heater's got to go up in that notch. So I'm going to take the heating element here. I'm going to set that heating element in here like this. And notice how it's been bent up a little bit. So let's take a minute and just straighten it out. Okay? So you're just gonna lay it out like that. I'm gonna go ahead and put this on top of the evaporator like so. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna take these here, curve it up just a little bit, and fish it through one of the two of the evaporator coils. I just like trying to get through the center one like this. And you can do this. And then basically what you're going to do is you're going to stick it in there like a zip tie, and then pull it tight. It's a good thing you got those gloves on because the fins are awfully sharp. So what we're going to do, wait, we're going to take this, I'm going to push this clip down until we make it tight. And then you can do like this. And then what are you going to do with the excess? Take your cutters and then just cut the excess right off. And then just bend it a little bit so it stays on there. You can use the pliers, your fingers, however you want to do it. Okay, so let's go ahead and pass the next one on the other side. And what you want to do is curve it up. So when you go down, you a little bit more on the end. Curve it up like this, and go underneath that aluminum tube.
Oh, underneath the aluminum tube.
Yeah, because what you're trying to do is go around the aluminum and the heater to connect together. And then you just want to bend it over and cut it off. Right, there's your cutters. And then just bend it over so it holds it in place. Okay, so our evaporator is almost ready. The only thing is we haven't connected our capillary tube. So I'm going to push this aside again. Now, this is the part everybody's afraid to do. Remember, the lines were inside the wall. We got to make a new hole. Well, on this side it's plastic, and on the back of the refrigerator it's almost aluminum. You could use a drill if you want. The disadvantage of using a drill is that the foam insulation inside the wall, if you use a drill, starts to get flaky. And when I mean flaky, it comes off like it leaves a lot of little mess, like styrofoam mess, and you get it everywhere. You get it in the drain, you get it all over the freezer. So if you don't have to do it, don't do it. Usually I use a long screwdriver, flat or Phillips, and I'm going to make a hole through the wall, but I got to know where to make the hole. So we're going to take that evaporator again that we already preset, and we're going to hold that evaporator up where it would normally go. Now, there's two notches in the foam that guide with the bent tubing, so that's how I know like roughly where I'm going to do. So I'm going to line this up with the back of the freezer like that. I'm going to say somewhere about there, I'm going to go through the back of the box, somewhere like right about there. And I'm just going to take this screwdriver and hit it like that. Okay? And I'm going to knock it hard in the back of the refrigerator, like so. And I'll turn it around so you can see. I made a little dent on the back. Can you see it? So I got a dent. That's right where my hole is, right? Take my screwdriver again. And I'll go back from the front one more time just to make sure it's nice and clear. And that's where my lines are going to come through. Okay? So, go back here one more time. My screwdriver went all the way through. Yes, sir.
So when you made the line, where did you know to measure that from the thing?
Well, I held the evaporator up roughly where it would be, and I looked where this went to the back of the unit. Now, if I'm a little bit higher, a little bit lower, guess what? This will bend. This will bend, so I can line it up with the hole. Now, I still got to get the capillary tube through. I have not attached it to my evaporator yet, and I do have to attach it here, not on the back of the fridge, not on the floor. I'm going to attach it back there.
Mr. Z,
Yes.
the other evaporator, the one that we took out the first time, didn't it already have a part where it had the hole in it? Why do we have to make a new one?
Well, that hole doesn't go through the back wall. That hole goes only through the plastic, and it runs between the plastic inside the fridge and the back wall, you can't see the lines. They're running all the way down inside that foam. You can't get to that tubing. You'd have to cut the whole back of the fridge off. Okay? Can you mute that a little bit, please? That's the Voxer, I think.
Can you use that existing hole?
No, because there's
No?
a tube there.
Oh, so you can't.
The existing heat exchanger is there. So we had to make our own place for the heat exchanger to pass through. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we gotta attach our capillary tube and we gotta attach our suction line outside the box, but I have to pass it through. And that's styrofoam, so we don't want styrofoam to get inside our tubing. So I'm gonna go ahead and reuse the cap that they gave me to cover this tube so that when I pass it through the wall, I don't get the styrofoam in there. Now the capillary tube, we're okay. If I want, after I pass it through, I'm just gonna cut a little bit of the end off. So I'm gonna go from the back of the fridge and pass the two lines through the hole that I just made. If I can find it. Let me get the screwdriver for a second so I can see the hole from the back side. Styrofoam to make it harder for me to see. There's some styrofoam from the front. This is blocking up the hole completely.
The one above it was the other evaporator part, right?
Yeah, the lines that were right above that was the original factory lines.
Oh, okay.
Okay? So now, pass it through. Now, if I didn't make the hole big enough, it's a lot harder to pass it through, but I gotta get that suction line through this opening here. Gotta go up just a little bit. Give me a second. Now I have to make the hole a little bit bigger, because the line's not passing through easy. And don't worry about the hole that you're making. A lot of people say, well, you're making a hole to the refrigerator. Isn't it going to start losing cold air and everything? And we're going to have moisture leaking and everything else? No, the kit comes with something called permagum. It's like Play-Doh. And you pack it around your lines here, and you pack it around your lines on the back so no air can get in or out either side. Okay, well, we're going to do that in the kit. I just have to make this hole a little bit more bigger so that I can get this, now I can see the hole. Let's see what I'm doing. Can someone see where it's at on the other side?
You got it.
There we go. I got it. It's a little bit easier when you have two people because one person can feed it to you. Once you've attached it to the evaporator and you got to push it back through, it's nice to have someone to help you out. If you don't have someone to help you out, you can still do it. So all we're going to do now is we're going to attach our capillary tube to the evaporator right now, okay? I want this thing to stay open, but. So, first of all I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off just a little bit of this capillary tube. So was catching better? I'm gonna need you over here to braise, so I'm just gonna go ahead and cut a little bit of it off. And the reason why I'm gonna cut it off is if I got a little piece of styrofoam from the fridge stuck in there, I could cause a problem. So if I cut a little bit off, hopefully I won't have a problem here. So I cut that off, and now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to stick that inside the evaporator. Now, you want to stick, when you're doing the capillary tube in your dryer filter or in your evaporator, you want to go down about 1 inch. Okay? So what you do is hold it on the outside where that inch would be. So when you stick it inside, you go till your fingers hit. Now you know. Because if I go too far, what am I going to do? I'm going to hit the bottom here, and I can push it up against the tube and cause a problem. If I go up too high, I don't go in deep enough. When I braze it, I'm going to cause a problem by restricting with solder or something. So what we're going to do now is we're going to braze this right here in the front of the freezer. So I'm going to take the torch and shoot the torch out here and then solder it from here. Just be careful of this, okay? Go ahead. Well, if you just hold it right here, you're good. You got the solder? Okay. So now we're going to attach the capillary tube to the other side of the evaporator here. Well, so far it doesn't look that hard, does it?
That whole part was a little.
Yeah, just need to make it a little bit bigger, that's all. With the torch. And put it higher. There you go. Perfect. It's gonna solder fast. No, it won't fall. Go ahead, try it. Okay, you're done. Get out. Okay, let it go. Okay, so went ahead and soldered the capillary tube to the evaporator there, so it's going to cool down for a minute. Now remember, we put that little rubber cap on the suction line here to keep stuff from getting inside the tube. We're not going to be able to probably maintain that. When we go to pull the line out, it might pull off. It's okay because we're not pushing it into the foam, we're taking it out. But we're going to go ahead and take this foam or this cap and put it on this other line that we attached earlier to the evaporator, because we got to pass the two of them. So we sort of almost line them up with our hand and just push them both through. I'm going to be on the back side to help you as pull forward. But what you want to do is you almost want to like just line these two up and then feed them through the hole from the front, and I'll pull them out from the back. Be careful, this line's still pretty warm, but you got gloves on, you'll probably be okay. Let's pull this out just a little bit. Okay, so you want to all slowly start pulling the line out. And you feed the evaporator with the other piece along with it. Go ahead and push me through the hole. There you go.
Hold on.
I lost my cap.
Yep. Alright.
There you go. Ahead. Go up a little bit. Push it out. Okay, great. Just leave it there for a second. Let me take a look. Okay, you can let it go. Just let it go. We're good. We're going to come back to here and finish this off last. So now the lines are through the wall, and I'm going to turn it around so we can see the back side. What we want to do is we want to take that suction line and push it almost completely flush with the wall. Okay? Well, I put the suction line, I just put it as flush to the wall as possible. Now see, here's the problem. The original evaporator is going up, so even if I just bent the heat exchanger without cutting it like I did, I have to bend it there, and then when it comes through the wall, I have to bend it again to go back down. So I have to double bend it. And that's where, when you do the first bend, it usually goes okay. It's when you bend the second one is when we have a problem. So now we're going to go ahead and turn this around. Go ahead and let's rotate this. Can you push that aside and rotate it? Okay, so now we have this, and what we want to do is, the reason why we pull this out is because we're going to have to cut some of this off. But we push it as far as we can, because when we're done, we're going to push this back flush, but since we pulled it forward, we got a little bit of room to go back, and it's going to fit in behind that cover. So what we're going to do now is we're going to cut some of this excess off. Go ahead and take a tubing cutter, and we're going to cut it maybe about that far away. Careful the cap tube, and just go ahead and cut that off.
cutting the suction line. That's the suction line.
That's the suction line, yes. And this is 5/16. Now they're not all 5/16, but a majority of these Frigidaire ones are. Okay, a bigger line may have a 3/8.
Break it down.
No, I actually cut my skin. I had to pull some excess skin off my finger. Good thing I have 7 layers. Okay, so normally this line, if you soldered it to the evaporator like we did and got it through, this line would be sticking way out here and it'd be very heavy. And either you damage the evaporator on the other end because of all the weight and trying to push it through, or when you go to bend it here, a tubing bender is not a very tight bend. It's a large sweeping bend. It'll push your line real far out in the back. Now, you're like, yeah, but look at all these ugly lines running down the back of the fridge. Well, in the heat exchanger kit, they give you 2 of these panels. And when you're done, you mount these panels over that line, and it comes with screws, and you screw it right to the back, and you hide the lines running all the way down, so it looks like it's almost factory.
Yeah, I was just about to ask. Doesn't it supposed to be in the like the whole heat exchanger supposed to be inside of that?
It's not supposed to be in the wall. It's not going to hurt it if it's outside, but we do have to do something. It comes with a plastic sleeve that we slide over it. Once we're done connecting it here, we're going to go ahead and put the plastic sleeve over it so it reduces humidity and leakage of water. So this was the key secret here. This doesn't come with the dryer filter, doesn't come with the heat exchanger kit, doesn't come with the evaporator. This is a 5/16 elbow, and they call it pre-swedged, which means it's already swedged to fit 5/16 tubing. So what are we going to do? We're going to solder it here, and we're going to take this line and solder it here, and then when we're done, we just push it flush with the fridge. So this way, we don't kink our lines. The instructions say to bend it, and I remember the first couple of times I did a fridge, I went through 3 evaporators and 2 heat exchangers and kept kinking them and breaking them and messing them up. So we got to be very careful. We're going to have to heat and solder this one, and then heat and solder this one. You might get a little bit of smoke or burning here. It's okay. It's part of the job. So go ahead and braise that on. She's a professional, huh? We got a hole in the back here.
God.
I don't know about the top one. Let me get a mirror. I know the one has a hole. Is there a hole in there? So, got a little bit more solder. That looks better. Let's take a look at it with the mirror. Look good. Look good. Looks like it's good. Okay, we'll let it cool down for a minute. But once we've done soldered this, and I'll go ahead and just bring the camera a little bit closer, you guys can see the elbow on the screen. That's a pre-swedged elbow that's been brazed in there to the suction line. Alright, so once you've gone ahead and you've added the elbow to it, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to take this and push it forward, like so. Normally I would just push it with my hand, but it's hot. It was just brazed. So when that's on like that, inside the kit, they give you two of these plates. I don't know if that's coming on the camera. They give you two of these plates to cover the back, which we'll put on at the end. They give you this, which is like a sleeve. You slide up over the suction line in the capillary tube. So go ahead and add that now. Start at the bottom, and this helps reduce humidity and moisture from getting on the lines. I don't know how many times I forgot to put it on, and I soldered the dryer filter in and connected it. It would go all the way up to it like that. Okay. So now with inside this, you get this permagum, and you can buy this by the box from your refrigeration supply house. And what you do is you just take this, and what I like to do is pull it a little bit away from the wall and go up underneath it, tuck it in, and then just go around. And then what you do is you just take your fingers and just seal it all up like that. I'll add a little bit more over the top of this, and that's going to keep air from here going into the box. And then when we put the inside back together again, we're going to put permagum around the other side of it too, so that we seal both sides of it up. Now the reason why I call it permagum is it's like chewing gum, but it doesn't get hard. You can put this thing on and come back 2 years later and it's still sticky like gum. And then you just want to take and put this thing on like that and seal it up. Alright, so once you're down here, we're going to connect that to our suction line and our dryer filter. We're just going to braze that right in. We're not going to use the existing suction line and capillary tube anymore. We cut them flush with the box. Okay? But we'll take a torch, pull this line off, and then we'll cut the suction line to fit that. Now, we got excess capillary tube. So what you do is you get yourself a can or something to roll it on. Let me just get something here. Oh, sorry. Can of Mentos chewing gum. Can you see this on the camera? So when you got all this excess capillary tube, we don't want to cut this capillary tube off. So we're going to go ahead and just attach the capillary tube here, and we're going to just wrap it around like this. And let it open up, and then we'll end up putting zip ties on it to keep the excess nice and tight and clean, so our job looks good. So the next thing to do would be to remove our suction line here, which comes from the compressor, and then all we have to do is connect it right to this line. We'll cut this so it goes right into that. So we undo this one, we'll move it right here, put the suction line, cut it, stick it right inside, braze it. And then we got this here and here for our dryer filter going across here. And then we evacuate and charge the system. Now, while we're pulling a vacuum on the system, we pressurize with nitrogen, just like we said, anytime we work on a system, we check nitrogen to make sure we have no leaks. Once we pressurize, find out we have no leaks, put the vacuum pump on, pull a vacuum on the system. Once we pull a vacuum on the system, or while the vacuum's running, we'll go inside the box, we'll finish wiring in the heater, and the defrost thermostat will be reattached. We'll put the evaporator fan cover on and everything else. And that's it. I just have to cut these lines short afterwards, and I'll just take a picture of that and add it to the video. Has anybody got any questions on this? No. And I'll show you guys how to do this. I'm not going to put it on the video right now because that'll be after we do the dryer filter and get the suction line done. Once all the lines are done, I'll turn the camera back on for a minute and record that portion of the job. Yes, sir.
Can you repeat all of that, please?
Watch the video. Okay, anybody else have any other questions on this? No? Okay. So we'll finish this up if you want to watch. I'll just stick it inside the suction line there. I'm going to have to heat it up and push it up in there and then solder it. You just grab it with pliers a little bit. You hold this with your hand and you grab it with pliers, lift it up. Not when it's hot.
No, I'm saying, but that's gonna be a lot. And it's gonna slide right in there?
It'll slide right in there like butter.
Alright, like butter, baby. It came out.
Bend the tube upward. Take that suction line and bend it up past the pipe. Bend it up. There you go. Give it a little bit upward force of bend. Just up a little more. Bend it up a little bit. Okay, let it go. Let it go. Not too much. Now, don't bend it, but just spring it down and stick it up against there. So now, when it gets hot, it wants to go up.
Okay.
So straighten it out a little bit. Line it up. Hold on. Wait. Let go of the pipes. You see it's not straight with the pipe, so I can't see your hands there. It's okay. But see, now it's straight with the pipe. When you heat it, it wants to spring up, so you just tap it up a little bit after you heat it.
Alright.
Then you take some solder and you finish it off. Get everything ready?
Yeah. I'm like super excited. I'm like, oh, this is crazy.
Don't put that hot on my tile floor. That hot solder.
I put like too much solder on there.
Yeah, but you sat there for too long. Once your solder melted, that's it. You get out. You don't do anymore.